about the legal battles going on surrounding Trump's order is immigration attorney Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch. Great to see you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's just jump right in. An excerpt from President Trump's post on True Social from yesterday that we just read there. We can put that up on the screen once again. What got us here?
So Trump issued an executive order very early on, the first week of his presidency, attempting to cancel what's in the 14th Amendment of the Constitution and saying that babies who are born in the United States to immigrant parents are no longer U.S. citizens. That's very established law in our country, as it's in the Constitution, and the Supreme Court has weighed in on it. And therefore, many courts, a handful of federal courts at the lower level, issued these nationwide injunctions, essentially blocking the implementation of this policy. But rather than appeal the question of birthright citizenship, the Trump administration appealed the question of nationwide injunctions, which is a little bit more shaky. And so yesterday, the Supreme Court heard oral arguments about that question, which is whether lower federal courts should have the authority to issue nationwide injunctions. And it's really unclear which way it's going to go after the oral arguments. There's probably going to be some sort of nuanced decision coming out of the court based on the way that the oral arguments went.
And it really seems to be a real struggle that people are watching, a power struggle sort of between the executive branch and the judicial branch, if we kind of take things from a bird's eye view there. Many pointing the finger at the Supreme Court, saying their previous ruling on the president's immunity is why this administration has ignored court orders so far. How does that immunity complicate things here?
Well, the presidential immunity is related to his own actions and, a president's criminal actions and behaviors. So that's sort of a separate issue from these nationwide injunctions. And I think, what we are seeing is a lot of these nationwide injunctions right now, because the president is moving so aggressively, so swiftly, and overstepping the bounds of his executive authority in many, many instances. And so the court is really grappling with this presidency that we have in this moment and what policies or decisions they're going to implement that will have a lasting effect.
If birthright citizenship was to end, the timeline is pretty quick, isn't it? And what would that look like? I mean, babies born at a hospital, what would happen?
So if birthright citizenship ends in certain jurisdictions, it would be mass chaos. Because, for example, let's say babies born in Texas to immigrant parents can't get Social Security numbers, they can't get passports, they can't get benefits. But then what if they then move to New Jersey, which would honor citizenship of children born in the United States? How would that child then be able to get benefits? And this was one of the arguments on the other side, is the chaos and the mismatch of state level policies would really put an overwhelming burden upon the states. And the court seemed receptive to that. So I think that ultimately the question of birthright citizenship is really not much of a question. Everybody pretty much understands that the president cannot revoke birthright citizenship through executive order, and the justices suggested as such. But whether we see a change moving forward about single federal judges having the authority to implement nationwide blocks on presidential policies, that is something that may arise. That is a change that may arise out of yesterday's oral argument.
Yeah, look, it's all quite complicated. So thank you for unpacking it for us. Immigration attorney Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too.